So many things it goes through.
Right. I'm doing a lot.
Too much. All right, and we are live. Let me hit record here. All right, welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday, I think. Yes, been stuck in the house so long, I cannot remember what day it is. But happy Wednesday, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Tara Melvin. I am the founder of the Signature CEO Conference. And as many of you know, the Signature CEO Conference got disrupted by that C word, COVID-19. And so we had to postpone, but in the interim, we want to bring to you some information from our speakers that were planning to be there and are still going to be there whenever we reschedule. And so we're just going to give you some tidbit information as far as like how to navigate through this disruptive time of COVID-19, allow you to see the positive in it, and so that you can still continue to operate as effective business owners. So with all that being said, I have Miss Nadia Anderson. Nadia is a certified public accountant based out of Richmond, Virginia, and she's going to be talking to us today about taxes. So she's going to tell us 5 reasons why we need to file our taxes now, rather than waiting on that extended deadline, which I know probably 80% of you all are going to do. But she is going to tell us why we're not going to do that. So right now, I'm going to hand it over to Nadia. She's going to introduce herself, tell a little bit about her, her company, and then she's going to dive right into her topic. Hi, Nadia. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Tara. Thanks for taking the time to pull this together. I was saddened that we couldn't be together in person, but this is really great that we're still getting able to share some information with people. So I'm Nadia Anderson, the owner of Nadia Anderson CPA, which is a small accounting practice here in Richmond, Virginia. Most of the clients that I serve are creative professionals and creative business owners. In addition to being a CPA, I am also an event planner. So I have an event management business called Virginia Grace. And in moving just through the event world with my clients with Virginia Grace, that's how I met a lot of my CPA clients. So just trying to share information with creative professionals and help them, I guess, just navigate through this season that we're in right now. We're hearing a lot of information, and IRS has extended the tax deadline. So ordinarily, corporate tax, that didn't change at all. There was a deadline March 15th. And so March 13th was the last day that I saw clients in my office, and I was still working through that corporate deadline with some clients. But generally, the personal deadline is April 15th, and that has now been shifted to July 15th. So you have an additional 3 months to get your individual income taxes done. However, I would encourage folks to go ahead and get that done now. And when we talk about that July 15th deadline, it really is for your individual federal income taxes. That's not speaking to the state income taxes. And so depending upon which state you live in, some of the states have modified their deadline. I'm in Virginia, and Virginia state taxes are usually due May 1st. That has been pushed back a month to June. So just check on what the state deadline is, but the federal deadline is moved to July 15th. But there's several reasons why I would encourage, or am still working through tax returns with my clients and encouraging them to give me the information now to go ahead and get it now. So I just wanted to talk through some of those things. The first reason is just that it's easy to gather the information. I think a lot of us just in our businesses are operating at top speed and don't always pause to develop a system like for keeping up with whatever the financial records are and organizing things. A lot of people there's a deadline of January 31st where anything related to taxes has to be sent to you. And so I know just working with some of my clients, like as things come in, people just kind of set them to the side or put them in a pile, don't necessarily have a system for organizing that. So that's a conversation we could have at another time about what's a good system to keep up with that information all throughout the year and as it's coming in. But in the absence of that, you just kind of set it on the side and don't pick it up until you have an appointment with your tax preparer. And then you're sort of scrambling, like, where is this paper? I know somebody emailed me this. I can't find it. I don't know where it is. So I think I'm calling this season just a period of discovery for me. And in that period, like, it's given us some time to just pause and slow down a bit. And so because of that, we have time to gather that information. We might even have time, should we choose to implement a system so that next year when it's time to do taxes, you don't have the same sort of scramble and angst. So I think the number one reason is just there's time to gather the information and pull everything together and make sure that you have it. So use the time that you have to do that. I think the second point is that the sooner that you submit your taxes, and again, I'm talking about federal income taxes, state specific things are different, but the sooner that you're able to submit your federal information, then your return would be processed in a timely manner. Think about it as the IRS system has so many tax returns that it can process like at one particular time. And so the longer the line is, the longer it takes you to get through the line. So if you do it now, you're at the front of the line. So I have clients who I have filed for them, you know, even before the shutdown happened. And so they're seeing their refunds like come back within a week. The longer that you wait, the further out you'll be in the line, the longer it will take for the processing to happen. And so if you are due a refund, it'll take you longer to get that refund. And so the IRS actually released a bulletin that is encouraging taxpayers, if you typically get a refund or you're expecting a refund, to file as soon as possible, because again, it will help them with the processing, but just all the money flow that's going to happen, especially related to whatever relief efforts are in place, like it'll just be helpful to be at the front of that line and to get your return processed in a timely manner. For those people who are not due a refund, which a lot of times small business owners may not be submitting taxes on a quarterly basis, like you don't have an employer who is withholding anything for you. And so for that reason, you typically, when you file your tax return, you have a payment that's due with it. For those folks, I would encourage you to go ahead and file now so that you know what your tax liability was for 2019. If you file now and the deadline is not until July 15th, what that deadline means is that any interest that is due on your tax liability, the interest will start computing at July 15th. If there's an underpayment penalty because you haven't made your payments up to that point, that penalty starts computing at that July 15th date as well. So if you file now and today and you know what the amount is, then you have 3 months to get yourself together, to do some fundraising, to shuffle the funds, do whatever you need to do to make that payment. If you wait until July 15th to file and then you find out what the dollar amount is and you still don't have your ducks in a row, you're going to pay more because you're going to pay that interest and penalty. So filing now will make you aware of what the number is and will give you time to get the money together so that there's not a penalty or any interest that's due. One of my projects for today, after we do this live, is to comb through all of this information that I've been getting about the relief efforts related to COVID-19 and what sort of relief is available to small business owners who can apply for unemployment. A lot of those rules and things are changing, and my general position is to sort of wait until things settle. A lot of information that's been shared has been speculative, but things haven't been finalized, and now some of those things are in place and have been passed. So a goal of mine today is just to go through all of that information so that I can understand it and then share it with my clients. But one thing that I do know is if there are any loans that are going to become available, so SBA loans that are related to this relief effort, or even like grants that may be given out, they're going to ask you for current financial information. So going to ask you how you were performing up until this happened, and your previous year's tax returns will likely also be requested. So go ahead and file 2019 so that you have that information, especially for business owners who, like for me, 2019 was a better year than 2018 was. So if it asks for the most recent tax return and I'm giving 2018, knowing that I made more money in 2019, I may not qualify for the same amount of relief that I would have if I had presented that year that was better. So I would say go ahead and file 2019 now so that as this information is requested, if you're seeking some sort of relief from what's going on, that you have the most current information, and so that you can qualify for the biggest amount of aid that is available to you. And then like the fifth reason, and this is a little personal and I think somewhat selfish of me, but I just want to move on. We are inundated with all of this information about this virus and the pandemic and what's happening and what's going to happen. And again, I live in Virginia, and the governor just 2 days ago, like put in this stay-at-home order until June 10th. Of course, like that date, we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. That date could change or get shifted, but that's the summertime. And as soon as they tell me the beach is open, like that's where I am. I'm not focused on no tax returns, yours or mine. Like I'm going to be ready to resume life as I know it and do the things that are enjoyable to me that I haven't been able to do since we've been here. And I would imagine that that's the case for many of you, as well as my clients. So I'm like, in order to move on, like don't let that deadline still be looming like over you and sort of hanging over your head and hanging out and waiting until later to do something. Go ahead and get it done now so that then like when things have shifted and we're out of this situation, like you can just move on.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple questions.
Okay.
So can you still file an extension with the new deadline? So say for instance, if you're not ready in July, are you still able to file an extension?
You are. That doesn't preclude you from getting an extension.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Now with the whole COVID-19 and scams and stuff, it's been reported in the news that people are opposing as the IRS. The IRS will never call you, correct?
The IRS will never call you.
They always do everything the old-fashioned way, through the mail.
Snail mail. So you'll get a letter like officially on letterhead, but they're never going to call you. And like I have some situations that I have to work through with the IRS and I call them. I'm never going to be able to call the same person back. So like telephone and the IRS, like that system is pretty ancient. They're never going to call you. So if somebody calls you posing as the IRS, it's not true.
Yeah. I remember one year, I got a letter in the mail and they said they were getting ready to garnish my wages because I had not paid them. I'm just like, oh no, yes, I did. You should have seen me scrambling through my files on the computer, finding my actual receipt from where I paid them, got the email confirmation and everything. And so the girl we were talking on the phone, I read her everything and she's like, okay, she said, well, you paid us. She said, but we're like not showing any indication. So what happened was I paid them online and I guess, well, it had to have been me, clicked on the wrong thing. So it went to something else. So she found my money and then she's like, well, we'll call you back. I said, oh, no. I said, I want to stay on hold.
Yeah.
I said, please do not hang up the phone. Do whatever you have to do. I will sit here and wait. And it was about an hour phone call waiting for her to transfer, all that information over to me.
And you, just in sharing that story, raised a good point. Like, so for folks who are making payments online, be very careful and look at like that you are applying the payment to the proper tax form, but also that you're applying it to the proper year. What I know for sure is that the IRS is understaffed and they're underpaid. It's nobody's job to find a mistake that you made. So that money would have just sat there.
Yeah, just
Even
would have
though
just sat
it was
there.
applied to a period that had already been covered, it would have just sat there because yeah, nobody would have found that. So just be very careful. And another thing that you said that I think is helpful is just keep good records, right? To
Yes.
be able to point back to, I did this on this day. Sometimes I'm annoyed because the IRS wants to correspond. Like the only way they correspond electronically is by fax, which is like, who has a fax machine? Who's still using a fax machine?
The lady asked me that too. I was like, I don't have a fax machine.
But the thing about it is the fax will give you like a date and time stamp that they can go back to, even though I think email does that too, but email is too much for them to get used to. But you know, you'll have this printed thing with this date and time. And the same is true with the mail. If you choose to mail things there, then you can get it certified or stamped by the post office to show it was sent on this day, it was delivered on this day. All of that becomes a part of your documentation trail. You can also get that information when you're doing things online. If you do like a screen capture of what the payment is, and I would encourage folks to do that anyway, because it will show like which tax form you've chosen and which time period it's going to. But just keep good records and have good documentation whenever you're communicating with the IRS, just in case something is called into question and you have to go back.
Because I would have went to my bank account and been ticked off. And something just told me to open up the email because it was an odd time of the year that I got the letter from them. And I started not to open it up. And I was just like, no, let me just open, see what they're talking about. And I was just like, oh, I dropped everything. I was like, oh, no. I was like, I have paid you guys. And that's how I pay them online. And it is, when you click on that drop down box to select all those different things, I must have been going too fast that day and just like hit the wrong thing. I paid them, but it didn't go towards, you know, my taxes that I was paying.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out and got it.
What should we have when we visit our accountant?
Haha, your accountant should tell you that. I give all of my clients a checklist. And so the checklist is pretty comprehensive. You may have also heard the term organizer. So if there's a electronic system that they're using, then you'll get like an organizer that's basically just, here is all the information that we need broken into different categories. And so a lot of times it'll be organized by like, what are all your income sources? So whether you're a business owner and you are using some financial reporting system to track your income for your business, or whether you're an individual who has a job where you get a W-2, like all of those W-2s, any sort of 1099s that you might get for interest or dividends or money coming in from other sources. So the revenue piece, and then all the different types of deductions that you may be able to take advantage of. And all of that is specific to what your tax situation is. So I share with my clients like a checklist that's pretty general that has every possible scenario. Once I've been doing somebody's taxes for a while, then there's certain questions that I don't need to ask anymore. But I still present that full list because things might come up, and as the taxpayer, you might not be aware of what the changes are or that something should be included. So I just try to make the list full and complete, to ask you questions and make you consider things, because a lot of times people are just in the habit of submitting, you know, the same things and don't consider, oh, well, I didn't know I had to do that. So I try to give a list that's full and complete. It's long. It's like 4 pages of things that may or may not have anything to do with you know, your particular tax situation, but just trying to jog your memory about things that may have happened throughout the year.
Okay. Somebody just posted a question. What are some of the common errors you find that people make when starting a new business regarding taxes?
Okay, good question. The first thing that came to my mind is giving me gas receipts.
Yeah, because if you do mileage, you can't do gas.
So maybe that's just something that is, I don't know, on my pet peeve list. And maybe folks don't know. So you're able to, like, if you are a business owner, so this is who I'm talking to, right? If you're a business owner, you're able to either deduct mileage for the miles that you've driven related to business, or to deduct actual expenses. The only time you do actual expenses is if you have a fleet of vehicles that's related to your business. So if you are, I don't know, a caterer or a florist, and you have some refrigerated trucks that are driving around and delivering things, and those vehicles are only for business, then any of the actual expenses related to that vehicle. So yes, the gas receipts, like if you get new tires, if you change the oil, any sort of maintenance on that car, you can submit those expenses to be deducted. However, if you're an individual who is using the same car for business and personal, you can't deduct the gas receipts, because we don't know if you drove that gas to your client site or to the grocery store or to pick up your kid from school. Like, there's no way to divide a tank of gas. And so rather than, if you're using the same vehicle for business and personal, rather than keeping up with those gas receipts, instead you should be tracking your mileage. So there is an app that I use that tracks the mileage. It makes it easy because it goes by the GPS on the car, but you separate your mileage between business and personal. And the IRS each year updates a mileage rate that's intended to take into consideration the wear and tear on the car and the maintenance in addition to the gas. So actually, like, that deduction is higher than if you were just keeping those gas receipts. You can't do gas receipts and mileage. You can only do gas receipts if you have a fleet. And most people do not have a fleet. You're using the same car for both. So make sure you're tracking your mileage. That's a thing that I see a lot. Another thing that is a point of confusion, which I don't know if it's a mistake as much as it's people don't know it or understand it, is deductions for food. So there's a lot of misinformation around meals and whether or not you're able to deduct those. And so I see a lot with that. So when talking about meals, then I like to create separate categories. Travel meals are always 100% deductible. So if you're going somewhere to stay overnight, or if you're going to visit a client and you can't, like, it's too far for you to reasonably pack your lunch. So if you put a sandwich in the seat beside you and it was full by the time you get there, like, you're probably not going to want to do that. So you can consider a meal that you eat like a travel meal, and that is 100% deductible, as opposed to, these are the two categories that I tend to put in my financials and when I'm setting up like categorization systems for clients. So there's meals, and I just call meals travel meals. That's 100% deductible. And then the other category, I might call it meetings instead of meals. So if you're meeting with your accountant, if you're meeting with a client, if you're meeting with a potential customer, if you're meeting with some vendor, and there is food or beverage that is consumed during that meeting, you're able to deduct that, but you're only able to deduct 50% of that. So if you and I, Tara, meet at Starbucks and have a cup of coffee, only half of that cup of coffee is deductible. Unless it's an overnight trip and I drove up to see you because I can't pack my own coffee maker with me. Or like when I'm coming to the Signature CEO conference, that's travel for me, right? So I'm not coming back home. So any food that I consume, like on my trip to the Signature CEO conference, that's 100%, as opposed to if, you know, you and I are in the same place and we're meeting, that's just 50%. So those are two things that just come to the top of my mind that I see people have a lot of questions around, or somehow mix that stuff up.
Okay. Other question from Christina. do you have to submit something to support that you use? Oh, she's going back to the business mileage. Do you have to submit something to support that you use those miles for business?
So you don't have to submit it with your tax return, but you have to have it in case they come back to you and ask the question. And so what I like to do is, again, I use this app that's really nifty, and it will send me a report that has like, I drove from this place to this place and how many miles that was, and therefore this is how much money I can deduct. But I like to cross-reference that report to my calendar. So in my calendar, like, it will have who I was meeting with and what the purpose was. And then that goes along with the mileage. So you have to have support for it, but you don't submit that support. You just keep it as your documentation in case they come back and ask you a question later.
That's what I do. Is I don't download it every month, but when I'm preparing my taxes, and I do submit like how many miles I did use, because I have to have like the start of the year, what the mileage was on my car, and then what I ended up at the end of the year. But like you said, that report from my app, I just download it on my computer and just say, hey, this is a record of my 2019, 2018 mileage, and I just store it in my file with everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, awesome. Any other questions? I think that's it. Any other questions out there for Ms.
I was on live on my Instagram at the same time that you are live on yours. So I'm gonna just scroll and see if anybody typed any questions in here. And I don't have any.
Okay. Awesome. So Nadia, one question. Do you just service people in the state of Virginia?
I don't. Yeah, so I have clients that are up and down the East Coast, and actually a few that are on the West Coast. So one thing that has been beneficial to me is that I was servicing clients that weren't in Virginia, and so I had the capability to turn on like virtual meetings, because I was doing that anyway with folks who are not in the same place. So Virginia is my home, and I'm very well versed in Virginia tax laws. But whenever I get a client that's in another state, then I'll do a bit of research to find out what's going on with them. And I have software that will help me, like if I'm doing tax preparation in another state and there's specific laws that I need to know, then that information is available. But I do service folks all over the US, not in Canada. I've gotten questions from people in Canada, but I haven't taken the time to invest in learning all of their stuff. So
are you versed with the entire like DC metro area? Because that's the majority of where all of the attendees for the conference would be coming from, just in case they want to reach out to you.
Yes. So yes. And I have clients that are in DC and in Maryland. So that's easy. That's like backyard.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And so with that being said, if people want to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you?
Okay. So my website is nadiaandersoncpa.com. And I point to the website first because I'm really transparent. All of the pricing information is there, but also on every page of the website, there's a button that says, let's get started. If anyone visits the website and clicks that button, it allows you to set up a 15-minute phone call. It's free. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So go to the website first. It's nadiaandersoncpa.com. I do have a Facebook page that's Nadia the CPA. And my Instagram is Nadia the CPA. So those are places where you can just find little tidbits and tips, like as I think of things, or if I get a question a lot, then usually it turns into something that becomes content. I'm like, oh, people want to know about this. So I put stuff there. Yeah, so you can follow along on Facebook or Instagram at Nadia the CPA.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Ms. Nadia, for taking the time out of your day and sharing your wisdom with us. Nadia says now, get those taxes done now. Let's not wait until July 15th. I'm going to recap what she said as far as her 5 reasons why. It's easy to gather the information now. Timely processing, you want to get if you're getting money back, I'm sure you want to get that money back quick. You can avoid interest and penalties. You can apply for disaster relief because she stated earlier that if you're applying for that disaster relief, they want to know your financials. And so your tax filing is going to be very important. And like she said, she want to move on. She wants to be on the beach when this is all over with. She don't want to be dealing with you all. And I'm sure you all want to move on to your life and start those summer vacations. So those are your 5 tips from Nadia. And we hope that you will come and see her at the Signature CEO Conference. It has been rescheduled. We have a date, but we're just holding on to it tight to make sure that these governors are going to let us out the house, because right now they have us confined, and I want everyone to stay at home so that we can get back to normal. And most importantly, I want everyone to be safe and healthy, follow your CDC guidelines, and, pray for those that, are sick, and pray for our healthcare professionals. That being said, this will stay live on the Signature CEO Conference page, and I will be recapping everything in the Signature CEO blog. So that will be up sometime next week. But thank you for joining us. Nadia, be safe out there, and we're going to get those taxes to you.
Thanks, Tara.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining.